All right. This is the 1885 one. So they have like they have such chunky faces with chunky face. I love them. Riding bikes, it's great. So here you go. You flip them face up and you take 5 cards. So each of these are out of 11 right now. So this is 6 of 11, 6 of 11, 8 of 11. It's like from your hand. 4, 8, 11. It flips, and then you would draw to 5. Or, better yet, you could play 4, making that 10. Then play to 11, so that way you draw to 5. So you'll draw 2 instead. Now, these ones here are relatively easy. I picked 11 because it's the most common number between the high and the lows. And then you look at the jack, queens, and kings, and these are the great example of how the game works. Just because the cards have a rank on them, and also the number value as well. So it's at a glance, you know, even though it's 3 numbers and it's in sequential order, but still, it's nice. I like it in any ways. If you were to place, say, a jack down here, that's going to change the Y value. It's no longer 11 that you're building to. You're building to 22 now, which means placing these here would make that 18. And then these you could either gamble on and place them down, but then you'd have to be building to something absurd like 40 something. So we're going to set them aside and call it the burn pile or discard pile, whatever you will. But that's a maximum of 3 you can only do. So here up the last 5. So in this instance, because none of these cards will help you build to 22, you would essentially lose the game. However, if you were to say build to 24 and then burn 2 jacks, then the cards 18 to 24 could be filled with a 6, thus flipping the pile, achieving victory. Now, how would you know that? Well, that's part of the gamble, and for me, part of the fun. When you don't have something that equals exactly 11, but you have something that roughly equals a 22, 23, 24, I don't know, it just feels pretty neat. Hypothetically speaking, if you were to open up with a face card and or a joker, the first 1 or more cards played on the pile would cause it to flip. For example, if I wanted to dump out my entire hand, then I could draw 4. And yes, that means that this 10 is built to 11, so that would cause that to flip, and this is no longer built to 11, it's built to 23. It's built to 24. And yes, if you were to, say, place a joker on the pile, it does in fact cause it to flip. Both of which these would have caused you to draw to 5 each. But that's basically the game. Also, once per game, if you happen to find yourself with a jack, queen, and king in your hand, there's actually a game mechanic called the Royal Refresh. You just set those aside, and that's 1 per game. It's whatever else is in your hand, whatever's in the burn pile, which essentially will reset that, and then it gets all shuffled together, and then you would draw to 5. And that inherently would be worth 12 points. Which, by the way, I actually have, in fact, figured out a scoring system. Funnily enough, it's just high score based. So like this one's build to 23, so you do that, and then draw to 5. So this one's build to 24. But if we make it build to 35, 20, 7, 8, 9, 35. Boom. So then, you would be left with 2 cards in your hand. So that's... So, yeah, I mean, in some instances of the game, it's honestly just enough to be able to manage to flip all 3. Or in other words, it's just enough to complete the main objective. Build a 35, burn 1. See, look at that. In that exact instance, I would have failed. Because I can't build to 35, because I don't have a 3. The lowest I have is 2. Everything else is too high, and I've already burned 2. So without a royal here, whatever, I fail. So like I said, sometimes it's just enough to even finish. But it's important to, if you're gonna be one of the ones like, well, I gotta keep track of my high score. God forbid. There you go. Be sure to always draw to 3 when you flip your last third pile. And also keep track of how many cards in your hand when that last third pile flipped for the multiplier. And then draw to 5. And then there you go. There's your full. That's it. Should point out the jokers they're worth 15 in the hand. Whereas they're flipped face down, part of a pile. I mean, they'd be worth 1 point like every other card, aren't they? That's it. I hope you can find joy in playing my silly little math-based flip card game. I love you, Mom.